You have to work?
No, you can just sit there like you always do. It's fine. I have to work.
Perfect.
All right, so we were talking about the Hamilton standard, and the reason why we were talking about the Hamilton standard counterweighted prop is because we already talked about it being a two-position prop, where it has counterweights on it, so that means that everything is the opposite, right? So centrifugal twisting force acts upon the counterweights, not the blade so much, and say more on the counterweights, which then makes that default centrifugal twisting force will send it to a high pitch, low RPM. Okay, but it's got stops on it, so it doesn't feather, right? Okay, and where do you adjust the stops in that one?
Inside
the counterweight, yeah. So, okay. And then oil pressure in the two position, just engine oil pressure will bring it back to low pitch, high RPM. Then we can just transition the whole thing and say, okay, let's pull out the three-way valve and let's put a governor on it. Okay, and now we've talked about how a governor works, and so we just attach a governor to the engine, and as a pilot, I can select the engine RPM I want, right? And so now we have the governor on there, and I have the blue handle, the prop handle all the way forward, so I'm telling the prop that I want to be in high RPM, okay, which means low blade angle. Well, low blade angle, because it's got counterweights, it's going to need engine oil. So in the counterweight, in the governor, I got to think this through as I'm talking. I've got high RPM. So if I tell it to always be in the high RPM, that's got to be flat, which means it's going to be in a perpetual state of underspeed.
Sending oil to it.
It's always going to want to speed up.
Yep, the governor's just always going to be saying, I'm too slow. So we're going to push all the pressure down on the speeder spring, which is going to push the flyweights in, and so now it's perpetually just underspeed. So that means the prop is then going to go to its low pitch stops, right? And so it's always going to be on the low pitch stops, and the governor is always saying, you're going too slow. You're going too slow. Flatten out, right? Yeah, speed up, flatten out, speed up. Except the prop's going to say, well, I'm on the stops. I can't. This is the best I can do. All right, we'll take that one step further, though, and that's mostly true, except we adjust the stop screw on the governor so that when we take off, if what I just said was true, and we took off and we're in this perpetual state of this, then the engine would overspeed because the prop isn't doing its job. It's just, hey, I'm on my low pitch stops, and what do you want me to do about it? You know, I'm doing, but we adjust the governor so that it's not quite underspeed. It's just a little bit underspeed, right? And so when we come up to RPM, when it hits that red line, we're going to be in equilibrium between the centrifugal force on the flyweights and the spring pressure will come into equilibrium right at red line. So right at red line, then and if we go over red line, well, it's going to overspeed, and then we're going to get a little pitch in there. So that now the governor is going to do its job to adjust the pitch of the prop to keep it at red line. So when I'm sitting on the runway and I got my feet on the brakes and I go full throttle, right? It'd be pretty flat because the angle of attack's all off. It's it's not efficient. It's holding it back. Then I start to roll down the runway, and the angle of attack comes in. Everything starts to get efficient. And if it wasn't for the governor and the constant speed, we would now go over red line. But prop's going to see that. The engine's going to start speeding up, and those flyweights are going to start going back out and get into equilibrium and hold the prop at an angle that keeps it at red line. Follow that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right for that moment we did.
right up until that, yeah. Okay. So I wrote governor. It was the same thing as what we talked about last week. Oh, there's a few things I can add on here. So governor, U-O-V-E-R-N-O. Yeah.
Would we be able to close the door?
Would we be able to collectively?
Yeah.
All of us together. All of us get up.
All in favor?
All in favor.
All in favor. Here.
Are we hearing that? What's going on?
Yeah. I'm
Are you distracted? You're worried about bugs flying in?
Yeah. The birds chirping.
I think it's just, he's cold, so I think it's the air conditioner.
Well, we can adjust the air conditioner if you want.
Can we all adjust there?
Yeah, we can all. Let's all get in a line.
Agreed.
I'm sorry, it just makes me
Go on collectively, push it once.
This is talked about last week, but it hasn't been a whole week yet. But on this older style prop that probably went on a radial engine, it has a control pulley. It has a control pulley. Let's see, on the side connected to cockpit controls. Control pulley on the side connected to cockpit controls. Let me see which one. I want this one. Nope, I don't have a good picture of a governor here. One of the things that you're going to have to do, and it's this pulley on the side of the governor, and it's really just a wheel that mounts on the governor, and it's got a whole bunch of holes all the way around it, a lot more than I'm drawing, every quarter inch or something, because the wheel's about that big around. Right, and the way it worked is they would actually have cables, would go back to the cockpit somewhere, and if they had to, they would switch them, and so it would go to another pulley, and forward. You follow what I'm saying? You had to rig them up, and your job when you put your pulley on your governor and you run it is you have to tell me, is this way high RPM? Or is it this way? You got to know that before you put it on there, because the first thing I'm going to do is walk up there and say, well, which way does the control go? Is it this way? Go this way, is it connected to the top, or this way, is it connected to the bottom? Turn the other way around. You have to understand that. And so we can have a conversation about that. There is a stop screw, so pulley incorporates a stop screw to adjust high RPM.
Not low RPM.
High RPM. Your red line.
Oh.
Yeah. So I told you, and that doesn't change. Even on the governor on my airplane, it doesn't have a wheel on it. It just has an arm. And so one of the first things I did after I got my airplane home is I didn't trust the tachometer. I don't want to overspeed my engine, so I got the handheld tachometer. I check it, and I find out that my red line is 2400, and I'm running at 2450. What do?
And stop screw in.
Yep, cut the safety wire, stop screw in. I forget, I always read it before I do it. It's 1/4 turn, I think it's 25 RPM, something like that.
One turn is 25 RPM, and every hole on there just is 250.
Oh, thank you. My particular one doesn't have the holes, it's just a set screw.
Yeah, I was about to ask about that.
So, yeah. And so, yeah, I was thinking it's 25 RPM. So,
Every quarter?
every quarter turn is 25 RPM. So,
Half turn.
gave it a half turn. Yep.
We'll check it again.
Check it again. Because you can't do it on the ground, you got to do it in flight.
Yeah.
So that's the fun part. Then you go for a flight and you come back. And thankfully, with the Continental, huh?
Without any of the safety wire.
Nice safety wire. It's one little screw. It doesn't take but a minute. And you don't even have to take the cowling off. It's in the cowling opening. It's right there. So it's real easy. It's the one thing you can do without taking the cowling off. All right, so it may include a balance spring. A balance spring above the speeder rack. Above the speeder rack. Well, what's the speeder rack?
Is that the thing that spins?
The rack and pinion on top. So when you turn this little wheel, it's got a gear that turns a plunger that goes up and down.
Uh-huh.
right? There may be a spring on top of that. Speeder springs down here. So you may include a balance spring above the speeder rack to set flyweights. To set, I shouldn't say.
That speeder rack is the plunger above the speeder spring that moves up and down.
Yes.
And then the balance spring is what's on top of that rack.
Yes. All right, so you may have a balance spring on the top that sets it right in the middle. So if you lose your cable control going, because remember, we could be talking about some old World War II stuff where the cable goes from the cockpit all the way down somewhere through some pulleys out to engine 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. It can be a long run. And, talking about people getting shot at, so they could have gotten shot at, bullet breaks so this is what this stuff went on. And so it had that spring on there. So instead of going all the way to high pitch or low pitch, it would go cruise, and that's where you had something.
Is that saying if the speeder goes out or
The cable,
the
control
throttle?
cables, control cable,
Control cable.
yes. All right, probably don't need to write this one. As prop control is moved forward, that is what?
Faster RPM.
High RPM. Spring pressure is,
Higher.
Yeah, underspeed.
so spring pressure is increased. Flyweights move to under speed, and prop goes into
Low pitch.
low pitch. As you pull it back, you go into
High pitch, low RPM.
high pitch, lower RPM. Spring pressure is,
Decrease.
okay, so spring pressure is decreased, which makes the flyweights go over speed. And so the engine is going to slow down until we're at equilibrium. Equilibrium between what two things?
Overspeed and on-speed.
The speeder spring.
I want to say the tension, the compression of the speeder spring, and the centrifugal. Those two forces until the flyweights are this way, and then we're equilibrium between the flyweights and the speeder spring, and that just holds us on speed, which in theory would block the oil from leaving or going into the prop, holding it exactly where it's supposed to be, but we know it's going to leak out and it's going to constantly be doing that, and so that's what happens. All right, operation. I don't want to write all this because it's like a page and a half, but I think we got it. Consider an aircraft in cruise flight. If a pilot desires a higher RPM, the prop control is moved forward. All right. This rotates the control pulley, which moves the speeder rack up or down?
Down.
Down. Okay. This adds spring pressure and moves the flyweights to
Underspeed.
underspeed. And let me see. And that does what to the pilot valve? Up or down?
Goes down.
Go down. Man, you guys got this. Where was I? Underspeed. Then in this particular one, is that going to bleed? Okay, remember, we're underspeed. Are we going to bleed off oil or send oil to the prop?
Depends.
This is the Hamilton standard counterweighted.
So it's gonna
Counterweighted prop.
send
We're
oil
trying to
to it.
flatten it,
It's
so
gonna
we
send
need
oil
to.
it.
Send oil.
Send oil.
Everybody's with me?
Send oil.
Pump oil into the prop. All right. So we're going to pump oil into the prop. It's going to flatten it out. The engine is going to speed up until the counterweights equilibrium with the spring, the speeder spring, hold it on speed. All right, now the pilot changes his mind and says, okay, now I want, what does he want? Lower RPM. So we're going to do what with the forward or back?
Pull it back.
Pull it back. And that is going to
Adjust.
speeder rack up or down?
Up.
Up. So the
Yep.
flyweights
They're
instantly
going to
say we're
overspeed.
overspeeding.
Yep.
So it did what to the
Pull
pilot
up your
valve?
pilot
It
valve.
goes
It's
up the pilot
gonna
valve.
lead
Up.
off oil
Drains out
pressure.
the oil.
Drains out the oil and
Until it comes
centrifugal
Lower blade angle.
centrifugal twisting force acting on the counterweights brings it into a
Lower blade angle.
lower blade angle, and then this till we get the flyweights on speed. All right. Let's see. Set up an adjustment. Yeah, I've already talked about all this. We put the governor on, put the gasket on. Which way does the bump on the gasket go?
Towards the governor.
Yeah.
Towards the governor. Swallowed a bug. Make sure the governor is set up to rotate correctly. The direction of rotation is when viewed from the drive end. If the A hole is open, it goes clockwise. All right.
It goes clockwise.
I don't know if I've talked a lot about rigging controls with you guys, but you definitely have to rig controls. There's a thing called cushion. Cushion is when you sit in say my airplane, any airplane, and you take the throttle and you go all the way to the firewall with the engine off. You should look at that and go, well, that's funny. The handle doesn't go all the way in. There's a little bit of space.
Cushion.
It's cushion because it hit out at the control first, at the thing first. If the throttle hit the stop first, the arm on the governor hit that first. Whatever happened, it happened out there, right? Say carb heat, well, hit the carb flapper hit where it was supposed to first. All right, so you got to have cushion. So make sure you have cushion, and make sure it's obviously going the right way. It's not backwards. Ever tell you my backwards story? The trim.
Yeah.
The guy told me to do backwards. I just placarded it. No, don't just placard it. Do it right. Of course, then once you install a governor, then you're going to take it out. And you got to do run up, and you're going to go to firewall everything, and it should go right up to red line. Now with a fixed pitch prop, you have your static RPM, and as long as it's within that static RPM range, it tells you it's making horsepower. What do we do with constant speed?
It's just going to go up to red line.
And if it does it, you adjust the governor till it goes to red line. So it's always going to go to red line. If at some point it doesn't go to red line, it's really a sick engine.
Yeah.
Or maybe your low pitch stop on the prop is off. But we look at the manifold pressure on that one. So it should be about an inch less than there. I got some troubleshooting. Propeller shifts to high blade angle but does not respond to cockpit input to low angle. So it shifts to high blade angle. What made it shift to high blade angle? This prop. Okay. And it won't respond to go anywhere else. What could be wrong with it?
No oil.
No oil. So what oil does this particular thing use?
Engine oil.
So if I look over it, it says oil pressure 60 psi. I probably have oil.
You do.
Okay, or maybe I've got blocked oil passages. Okay, good. What else could be wrong?
The linkage, the external.
Broken speeder spring. Okay. Maybe the linkage isn't hooked up. What else I got? Or broken governor drive shaft. Does have a shear pin in it, or shear shaft. Sluggish or erratic prop operation. We talked about this. We got sludge buildup. That's probably the number one thing. All right. So that is the Hamilton standard. Let me see. So that was this one. Not that one.
Where's that pretty crow?
This one. All right. So we've covered that. Yep. And so as an overview of that particular prop, does it have counterweights?
Yes.
What moves prop to low pitch?
Oil pressure.
What moves prop to high pitch? All right.
Spring.
If we increase the speeder spring pressure, it is an underspeed, and that means oil to prop
Oil
and the
drains.
opposite. All right, let's move on to contemporary props. Macaulay. How do you know it's a Macaulay?
Because
The
it's
sticker.
Because there's a sticker on there that tells you it's a Macaulay. That's the number one way to find out.
Is that threaded?
All right, Macaulay, popular design. Let's see, propeller design. Popular system used on many different light and medium-sized GA aircraft. According to my notes, we're mostly talking about non-counterweighted, non-feathering at this moment in time. We'll see how well that works out. So let's do this. Macaulay. Macaulay, prop design. This is a very popular model or system used on many different lightweight lightweight, and medium-sized, lightweight, and GA aircraft. Well, I can't say GA aircraft because that'd be like saying general aviation aircraft. I guess I could. I didn't want to say ATM machine, automatic ATM machine.
You
What?
said that same thing 2 years ago.
Did I really?
Yes, you said that exact same thing.
Oh, I guess my mind hasn't changed much then. What's my next thing I'm going to say?
No, remember that just sparked my memory.
I wasn't gonna say wrench size is not bolt size.
Probably. There are two different
Here's your
designs.
job application.
Oh, yeah. That.
Nope. Two different designs. There's the threaded. The threaded where it uses a giant, I mean, you look at our mock-ups, it's a very large threaded nut thing that screws in there. So threaded uses a threaded retention nut to hold blade. Uses a threaded retention nut to hold blade in. Nut to hold blade into hub. This is the old style. And the threadless.
The thread.
Threaded. See, you'll know that because this one says modern design. With higher TBO. This is the prop I have on my airplane. Uses split retainers. To hold blade into hub. So this is the one I was telling you a story about this summer when I worked on that 182 and it was so rough. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and so they finally, they tried to balance it, dynamic balance, and it wouldn't work. And by the way, this all started because it wouldn't keep the alternator belt on. It kept throwing the alternator belt off. And they kept putting new alternator belts on. It just wouldn't stay. And so, yeah, they brought it in to do something. You could hear a weird click, and then the click ended. They took half apart and the counterweights. And anyway, but I tell you that story because when they did take the threaded Macaulay off and sent it to the prop shop, they were like, "Don't waste your money. It's threaded. It's not worth it. Just buy a new one." So they bought him a threadless, which really sucks because the mechanic working on it called Macaulay and said, "Okay, I have to make a choice here. We're either going to pay a lot of extra money to have this threaded one and send it in and try and get it overhauled, or we'll buy the new one. But it's very important to me that when we buy the new threadless one, you tell me, do I need to buy a new bulkheads kit and spinner?" And they said, "No, the new one definitely doesn't need it. You can use the old one." So fine, the owner said, "All right, I'll do it," because I guess he could have got a used one or something. So they ordered this brand new propeller. It shows up out of the box. They go to put it on, and the bulkhead does not line up because the way it's indexed is completely different. And so they call Macaulay, and it's like, okay, now we need. It was 10. I think their cost was like, it was around $10,000. It was another 10,000 for the spinner and bulkhead or something like that. It was like insane. I'm like, now what? So, yeah. A case of, okay, so this one here, so we'll always look at the same thing. So uses what force to drive prop to the low blade angle? Okay. Uses centrifugal twisting force, I know, and spring pressure. So now we're going to look for a spring inside the hub in there. Centrifugal twisting force and spring pressure to drive prop to low blade angle. HIGH, high RPM, high RPM. So that means it must uses governor oil pressure. I should just abbreviate that GOP. To drive prop to high blade angle, low RPM. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, sure. Which type is this? Thread or threadless?
Threadless.
You don't see these big old threads right there. But my next point is blades are installed into hub and rotate on large ball bearings. There they are.
Large ball bearings.
You know what I don't see? Oh, there it is. There's the spring right there. Okay. And what is fascinating to me is this piece right here. What do you think that's made out of?
Plastic.
It's plastic.
No.
Phenolic, to be exact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenolic. And so oil will come through the hub, up through the center, out this hole, press. Yeah?
Is it only certain models that use that phenolic? Because there's some out there that have metal arms.
I couldn't answer that. Not being able to take them apart has its drawbacks. So oil pressure would push here. You see the black O-ring right there. Push this down. When that pushes down, it's going to take the pin, and the pin is going to, I don't know if that pin's going to this side or that side. I think it's this side. And rotate it down. So pin, rotate down. That would go, nope, it's got to be this side.
Yeah, it looks like
Down.
It looks like it's the arm right there.
Yeah, it looks like the arm goes to this side. It doesn't go to both sides for sure. You have on the other side. And so it pushes it down. That's oil pressure pushing down. So oil pressure pushing down this has to go to a high blade angle, correct? That looks more like a Hartzell. No, those things. But okay. So, by the way, those are the things that are real booger to. Oh, it's a Macaulay for sure. So, that are real booger to safety. It is a stud with a castellated nut, if you will, and a roll pin. And so you have to torque those, and the safety wire goes right through that little tiny hole right there. And so the safety wire has to go wrap around there, back in here where you can't get it. And so if I was going to safety to that one, it's got to go through here. I guess you can come out this way, and then you got to go this way, but you have to go back around the back side and out. Good times, good times. Blades and hub, internal piston rides in a cylinder. The piston is connected to the blade actuating link. As the piston moves, the blade actuating link rotates. Blade actuating pin installed on the butt end of the blade rides inside the actuating link. As the link rotates, it causes the blade to rotate. High and low pitch stops are internal, so they're preset by whoever overhauled it to hit stops going both high and low. I'll write this down, all of that. These props are usually sealed. There is no grease required. That's why I do like them. But it is sealed with a red dyed oil. So if you see red dye,
Cracks.
that means you've got a crack somewhere. So it's got its own built-in NDT system,
That's cool.
which is pretty cool. Oh, there we go. Cross section. What is everything? Oh, I will throw this out there, and it's kind of weird. Some props are completely sealed with the exception of venting through a spiral pin. which I'm not sure which ones have this spiral pin. It's like a little, it's a very small pin, a pound in there, which means it's vented. So if it's vented with the spiral pin, then it can't be filled full of oil. The oil would go out with the vent. But I think all the new ones are completely sealed with the red dye.
So in this one, the piston is moving and the cylinder is stationary, correct? Unlike the other ones, which were the opposite?
Yes, on the one we looked at, the Hartzell, or not Hartzell, the Hamilton Standard, the piston stayed put and the cylinder moved. All of the other, I think all the other ones we're going to look at is the opposite. The cylinder is bolted down and the piston moves back and forth, riding on the actuator, moving the actuator links back and forth. Again, there's the spring that's going to help push it forward, which assists in going to high RPM. Nope, another view, same prop. What kind is this one?
Threaded.
Brett, how can you tell that?
Some big ass threads.
BATs. And the plastic piece. So you can see as the piston moves back, it'll push this back and rotate it that way. And I think we just saw that picture a minute ago, didn't we?
It was just from a different angle.
See the spring
Towards
go
that.
down.
Ooh, there we go. Notice this hub is internally lubricated with red dyed oil, which is independent of engine lubricating system.
Wah, wah.
That's not a good sign.
Will you ever see it leaking, like evidence in the engine oil to where it's leaked fast?
I don't think so. I don't think you'd even notice it. There's just too little oil in the prop, too much oil in the engine. And then as a real good mechanic, we don't actually look at the oil coming out. If we did, be like, oh, that's funny, it's a little red. Must be Marvel Mr. Oil.
It just means it's working really good.
The Marine worked on
All right. We making fun of Marines? I'm not joining on that one.
that. Sorry.
What's that?
There's only one in here.
That's all it takes. Who is it?
Fine.
Oh, okay. So I knew you worked on the. I forgot that you were a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I knew you worked on the as a civilian too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
With, Lockheed.
clued in on that one. Let's see, blades. Something about blades. Blades are installed into the hub. Blades are installed into the hub. And rotate on large ball bearings. Where'd you go to boot camp?
Pendleton.
San Diego?
Well, San Diego.
San Diego, yeah. Because I went to boot camp in the Navy when there was one. It was probably gone by the time you got there.
Yeah.
So the Navy boot camp was back to back with the Marine boot camp. And
Right. No, right there.
yeah, and it was pretty hilarious because, we would all do, that's where the PT was in our tracks. And so they would get, we would say to us Navy guys, okay, we want you to, we're going to do the run around the track and we want you to stay in formation and so we would start and we would get from here to that door and it would be just a single file line with, the fast guys in the front and the fat guys in the back throwing up. And then, as fast as our fast guy is in the Navy, the entire squad of Marines would be faster in cadence, in formation, on about their 8th time around that track, man. I'm like, okay, from that, Marines are badass, man. Yep. Huh? So I'm like, yep.
No, they're just running because they're so scared. That's it.
Whatever it was, they could do it.
It's all fear.
Yeah.
An internal piston rides inside a cylinder. Rides inside the cylinder. Piston is connected to a blade actuating link. A piston is connected to a blade actuating link. Boy, you really want me to write all this stuff? As the piston moves, the blade actuating link rotates. I'm not going to write all that. High and low pitch stops are internal. Okay, you know what I mean by high and low stops? You got to have pitch stops in there. You can't just let it go do its own thing. So they're internal to the engine. But how often is the prop on its low pitch stop?
Not that often.
Because
It's
what?
timed. Yeah.
What?
When it's
On
off.
flight.
When it's off?
Yeah.
Yeah, idle.
I don't.
Because most of the time, what's
Starting.
where is the blade at?
No blade
It's gonna be
angles.
low, but what's the governor's gonna hold it off that stop? Otherwise, it'll overspeed. So as soon as you get up into higher RPMs, you bring the throttle up on the. It's gonna come off that low pitch stop, and the governor will keep it where it needs to be.
In a descent, right, it's more likely to be.
Ooh, good
pushed
point.
out, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
Assuming you didn't.
gonna try its.
That's such a
best
good
to
point.
Flatten the blade angle, and it can't.
So,
because
if, but if you're
stop.
descending, like let's say we're coming out of 5,000 feet, you're still going to have your prop pulled back to like 2,200 RPM or something.
True, you're not gonna be at full.
So I wouldn't have the prop in.
Unless you dive bomb.
Yeah.
Unless you
Kamikaze?
bring it forwards for prior landing, and then you're.
Yeah, then you go down. Then it would be, yeah. But I just want to instill the point in you that it's up to us mechanics that we have to set the low pitch stop with the governor. Thank you for repeating. Under most circumstances. And the pitch stops are internal. Some hubs are sealed. Sealed. I'm gonna put and filled. And filled with oil, stained or stained, dyed. Dyed's a better word. Dyed red. Yes.
You said some of them are also vented, and that they couldn't have oil in
I don't know which one is which. My opinion is that all the newer ones have the red dye in them without the spiral. Because you can't vent it and put red dye in at the same time.
No, but like, what would the benefit of that? Why would you?
Why would you vent it?
Why would you have?
I can't. I don't know. It's like, well, then how do you lubricate it?
Yeah. Is it just like all way just pretty?
I'd have to. I should call the prop shop and ask them. When I send mine in, I'll ask. Hey, do I need? See what they do.
Why are props vented? That's why, and that's the question.
Don't know.
like pressurization issues?
I know. Yeah, I don't. It's the only thing I think of, but it doesn't make sense. But then you look at it, it's like, well, then how is it lubricated? So, just something I read somewhere.
Marvel Mystery Oil.
Yes.
You have to feed it with air.
Um, we could mention the governor. So the governor's not going to be any different. You Macaulay governor, but everything's the same. So it's just the same as what we looked at. So I just put same, and you know that there's really no different. It's not going to have a wheel on it. It has a little arm on it, and there's usually a spring on it. It's going to be spring loaded to high RPM. In case you lost your cable, it'll just go to high RPM. That's a fine place to be. You can fly it that way. Take off, land. Setup and adjustment.
Some.
Same. Same.
Oh.
Same as what we've been talking about. Same as the Hamilton standard. Well, I could put this same as Hamilton standard, but works opposite. Guess I could expand on that. So it's a Hamilton standard because it took oil pressure to bring it to low pitch. This one's the opposite.
Brings oil pressure, bring it to
Oil
high
pressure,
pitch.
high pitch. Other than that,
Left
so
power rates.
so what's different inside of the governor to make it do that?
Nothing.
So
Something's got to be different.
the check valve, the piston valve,
Pilot valve.
The pilot valve and its chamber have to be different. Other than that, it's the same.
How does the check valve?
You keep the same governor, you just change out the.
Sure. Okay. What tool do you need to take the prop off?
4 foot.
The ground for some pilots.
Oh man, I said never forget.
Spring.
No, if you take the prop off, you need something. What do you need?
Five
Five down bucket.
Oh, yeah, 5 gallon.
All right. So, all right. That's to take it off.
Apparently your hands for some people, and it's gonna walk away the whole prop is
You're always going to put a new O-ring on there because that prop has to seal against the crank flange. So we're always going to lubricate and use a new O-ring on there. Use proper torque. Let me see whatever.
New O-ring, you
Yeah.
never use the existing one?
No. No. They're really cheap and man, that's one of those things where the shop foreman, you kind of come unglued if you've got to take a whole prop back off because
They just kind of.
you didn't put a new O-ring on for $1. Use a new one. So, okay, so use.
That's still the same.
Let's say use proper torque, and obviously safety wire. What size safety wire?
041.
Or over 1.
Yeah, it's gonna be 040, 041, whichever one that manufacturer calls for. Or just 041 is fine. But when I use proper torque, is that wet or dry?
Wet,
Wet.
What are you gonna lubricate it with?
whatever it tells you to.
SECs?
Use proper torque, so use proper lube. Normally, when you get a prop back from the prop shop, they're going to send just a little tiny, you know, the Carmex, or the stuff for the lips and the whatnot, where you put your finger in, little dish like that, just enough. And so it'll give you exactly what they want you to use on that prop. And so, and it'll also, and usually the torque, where you can find the torque?
In the book.
Which book?
Airframe.
4313? Engine manual?
Airframe manual.
Airframe manual? Prop manual?
Airframe.
Usually the airframe prop would be appropriate. More often than not on these particular propellers, there's a sticker on there.
Tells us.
Torque too, because prop shops know that prop manuals are hard to come by. They don't like to get in and out. And so this is where your prop shop, don't be afraid to call them. That's the one thing, man. Prop shops, instrument shops, they're different. We can't work on this stuff. You know, it's different if you're an A&P and you call up an engine overhaul shop and go, hey man, what's the torque on the cylinders? Like, you know, you call a prop shop, especially when you have a relationship with them, hey, I got this prop, supposed to put it on, you know, even if you didn't get it from them, I just got this new prop in, I got to put it on, what's the torque? They're usually pretty good and they'll talk to you. So make sure you use the right lube and stuff. And then we're going to take it out, run it. Of course, we're going to check for leaks to the hub, leaks to that O-ring. And we're going to adjust what?
The stops.
Yep.
Those stops.
Not the one you said. The high RPM stops.
Just the high RPM.
Just the high RPM stop. Where is that located? The governor. There's one inside the prop, right?
Yep.
You can't touch that.
Can't go inside the prop.
All
You
right?
gotta do it while it's spinning.
Yeah. It's like MC Hammer says. You can't touch that. Yeah, I put some stuff on here. Loss of oil pressure will result in a what angle?
Feather.
Low blade angle. No, high blade angle.
Low blade.
Yeah,
Opposite.
that's
Low
low
blade.
blade.
Loss of oil pressure, low blade angle.
Low blade angle.
Centrifugal twisting force, low blade angle. And they are balanced. The balance weights, I don't need to write this down there, but the threaded design has balance weights on the blade retention nuts, and the threadless has them around the cylinder. Let me see. See if we can find it. Oh, there we are. There's your counterweight right there. Your balancing weights are out here on the threadless. And right there's your weights right there on the threaded. You put them out here too, I suppose. But that's where they go. Oops. All right, I think that brings me to the chart. There we go. So Macaulay propeller, the non-counterweighted, does not have counterweights. What moves the prop to low pitch? And spring pressure. What moves the prop to high pitch?
Oil pressure.
From the
From the
governor. Okay.
Are we gonna have this whole chart filled?
Uh-huh. And that many props to go through. All right, Hartzell props. It goes faster. I hope. Hartzell props. Propel. Yes. Okay. Designs. There are two types. You have the steel hub. And that one is identified by exposed operating mechanism. So has exposed operating mechanism. And we have the compact,
Which using compact.
which is bigger. It is bigger, huh? Kinda, yeah. The compact, which is bigger, no exposed. No exposed operating. Yeah?
Is that the one that's kind of cut away, is kind of blue and red, and has all the little weird Swiss cheese holes in it?
It's blue and red.
No, that's the Hamilton
That's-
standard. The big one.
Nah, I think that was the steel hub.
Big, really big one that's.
Oh, the
this
blue,
big
the
as
one
well.
that's right by the classroom. That's
Yeah.
no, that's a steel.
uh,
That's a.
All right. Let's talk about the steel hub first.
Yeah, it's the one right by the ground adjustable. The one right by the ground adjustable.
You'll know tomorrow when you walk in, you'll be like, oh, that's a.
We'll see.
All right. There you go. There's your two types. Terrible picture. Steel hub. Notice how it's got rods out here that go to the piston. You can see the counterweight hanging out there. This is more of the, that's the compact.
That's big.
Let's see.
That was a terrible picture.
That's gonna be.
That's an even worse picture.
That's a compact.
That is a insanely huge spring.
That's a
Dude, take off
counterweight
the
compact.
car?
I was gonna- I was-
There we go.
Counterweight compact.
So Hartzell, which one is this one?
It's a compact.
Do you see any external?
Nope.
Nope.
It's threadless.
Well, that one's almost hard to.
That one's also a compact.
It is.
You sure? Isn't that a?
I know.
That's all.
It's internal, I think. That looks more like a
No,
compact to me.
Outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that.
That's outside.
Oh, that's pretty bad when you can't even figure it out because it's the cutaway is killing me here.
Yeah.
No, that's inside.
It looks like it's internal.
That's- Yeah.
Oh, look, you can see the hardware and when it comes in.
Same.
Yeah, it's inside.
Yeah, the spring.
That's what we're looking at right there. We were looking at this
I don't
one.
even know what that is.
It's a yeah, not surprised. All right, that's all the pictures I got. Okay.
It's a whale.
All right.
It's a whale.
It's a whale.
Bird.
Canatoo. It's a
It
canatoo.
is
It's funny. My notes I have come in both counterweight and non-counterweight for the steel hub. Although I don't know. remember seeing any non-counterweighted. Eh,
Your,
could be.
Your chart had heart soul in 2 spots.
I know. I write this stuff, and then after a period of time, I'm like, God, I never really seen that before. So I'll just go with it because I got it from something, and then when I wrote it, it was in my head. So steel hub, come in both counterweight and non-counterweight. And now we know, and I'll have to write this, if it's counterweighted, CTF means that
High blading.
high blade, and with non-counterweighted, centrifugal twisting force moves it to
Whoa.
low. Okay. If it goes on a twin, it's always going to have counterweights. Yeah, say counterweights. Okay. So if
If it's on a twin, it always has counterweights.
Unless it doesn't.
unless it doesn't, I don't want to say always.
That's a scary word to use.
Manufacturers are weird, man.
Oops. If prop is for the twin, which is feathering. All right, just like I want to say, you can't have a twin engine aircraft that doesn't have feathering props. So if you have a twin, you have to have feathering props. There are exceptions to that rule because there are twins out there that don't have feathering props. Do you know of any?
Nope.
I can only think of one off the top of my head, and I told you about it. That was that twin Aranca. That O200's on it.
Weirdo.
Aranca Twin Champion Lancer. Yeah, that sounds like it. There we go.
It looks so weird.
Yeah. It's an Aranca. I wanted better pictures than that.
It does not look like her. It does not look like her at all.
Let's see. Where's it good?
Is that what she looked like before the surgery?
That was weird. $20?
Yo!
It's a phone case.
Oh, that's what it is. But I mean, look at those props. What do you notice?
Those are fixed.
Whoa.
Oh man. Okay.
Those are fixed pitch.
So they are non-counterweighted, non-feathering.
Yeah.
And an iPhone.
That looks not fun.
Of all of the cases in all of the world, that is not the one I would have chosen.
That is
That thing
sight to
just
behold.
doesn't look like it's nice to be in.
So there you go. There's an actual Aranca champ.
It's like
And so they just moved the.
the engine cowling is the size of the cockpit.
All right. Where am I at here? Steel hub.
Props.
Prop is feathering. Okay. The compact hub.
Yours isn't.
That is the more modern design. More modern design uses an aluminum hub. All right, this is the one that's easy to screw up though, maintenance. Maintenance, all right. The compact hub requires greasing. One, this cannot be understated. Follow the manual. And stickers. If you look at the 3-bladed compact Hartzell that was outside, Zach, you cut that down? It came off of Mooney.
Oh, okay.
I know. He
There's
kept
a
telling me it
medium
came off that
M20.
twin. And I'm like, I can't be off the twin.
Okay.
It's got to. So one of the things that you look at when you look at propellers to decide if it's a feathering or not is a non-feathering has a hub that's not much bigger than that because the piston's only moving back and forth that far because the blade's only going that far, right? It's almost time to go. Thank you for yawning. But if it's going to feather, it's got the piston's got to go a long way, so the domes are really long on it. So Zach kept saying, "Oh, it's off the twin." I'm like, "Oh man, the hub's that big."
I've known this for like 4 months.
Yeah. So
No, both the props for the twins are in the back. For the
yeah, I found them back there. Found 2 matching props. I go, these got to be it. So anyway, Jacob looked up what it was. And, yeah. Who else helped you?
Yeah, Adrian.
Adrian.
We figured
Yeah,
it
good
out.
job.
Yeah, shut up.
So they figured it out. Came off a Mooney. So
Mooney M20.
anyway, take a look at it. There are stickers on there that were not filled out, which is wonderful. That says, I think that was that one. This prop has been serviced with blank
Oh,
grease. Make sure to never change the grease, and it wasn't.
someone else says, "Don't take this off." Or
It
do
also
not-
says, don't take this the heck apart.
This thing has a spring or something spring. Do not remove.
Yeah, because it's going to go through the roof. So.
I saw that spring, or at least in the picture that you showed us. Man, that thing is beefy.